ladies and gentlemen, big story today, from renewing his connect with the diaspora to making a fresh pitch for peace with Ukraine to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Prime Minister Narendra Modi struck all the right notes, have made all the big moves already on day one in Kazan as he arrived to a rousing reception ahead of the 16th BRICS summit.
From the time he touched down in Russian city of Kazan, the spotlight remained firmly on Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he smiled, waved and greeted the cheering diaspora who waited in the cold to welcome him. Ahead of his arrival, posters went up across the Russian city, welcoming him back for the second time in 4 months. After the meet and greet with the diaspora, the Prime Minister sat down for a bilateral with the host President Vladimir Putin. Picking up from where he left off in Moscow, Prime Minister Modi prodded Putin again for peace with Ukraine.
हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। हमारे सभी प्रयास मानवता को प्रमुखता देते हैं। आने वाले समय में भी भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है।
Prime Minister Modi has made it clear that India is a part of the multilateral world.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my guest this evening, Abhijit Chawda from New Delhi, Sergey Doviranov, Director of Communications at the BRICS Cultural Media Forum from Russia, Dr. Joseph Chalil, author and publisher of the Universal News Network from Florida, and Sarang Shidor, Director of the Global South Program at the Quincy Institute in Washington. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Let me go to you first in Washington, Mr. Shidor. You're watching this BRICS summit. And we are watching it keenly as well. It has come at a time when the Americans have been putting some pressure on India to go completely with the American group, which is not happening. We believe that we can, and we are very successfully striking the right balance. How easy is this, and how easy is it going to be going forward? Mr. Shidore, please.
Thank you, Arnab, for having me. I think it's a complicated challenge, no doubt, because we live in a world that is increasingly being polarized, that we have a Cold War-like situation between the United States on one side and Russia and China on the other side. And countries like India, the middle or major powers, that have their own claim, their own perspectives, are increasingly being pushed towards one side or the other. And the challenge for a country like India is to assert its own strategic autonomy from the Indian perspective and find a way to benefit from all sides. And that's, BRICS is one forum for doing that, as the way, from what I can tell, New Delhi is looking at it. And the United States is certainly going to have to, in the longer run, and even now, in the case of India, have to live with the fact that these global south middle powers are going to find their own balance and their own way of benefiting from this competition and focusing on their own rights.
And Dr. Joseph Chalil, does America really have any levers on us left? I remember that when they put the pressure, they said that they will impose sanctions on us when we were going ahead with the S-400 missile defense system purchase. They threatened, but the sanctions were placed not as an India-specific favor, but were rolled out by the US. So they threatened, right? But our purchase still went through. The Americans had to deal with the fact that we are not going to listen to them beyond the point. Now we are not only not listening to them, but we've made it clear that we will continue to have a strong affinity with the BRICS nations, with Russia, and we're also solving our issues with China in a very deliberate move. How will Washington respond to this?
The deep south, or the deep state in America is should be really worried, because I think the biggest threat to their power is this, especially the Russia-China alliance. And if India comes into that picture, it will be, it won't be under control. But from all what we see here, the likelihood that there'll be a Trump presidency coming in, then it might be a welcome move. It might be a group of friends and global peace and possibly long-term peace forever. Maybe this might be the only way we can avoid a World War III, where Russia and China and America and India together are speaking us as equals, as partners, not as adversaries, not as America controlling the deep state telling India or Russia or China this is what they should do, versus respected for their right place in the history, right place to bring peace to the world. So again, China has the money more than America have at this point. Russia has all the natural resources. India has the manpower. This three-party combination would be a force to reckon with. I hope and pray that the deep state of America get to know this and then play their card wisely, and they respect India and bring peace to Ukraine and Russia as soon as possible. This is what Donald Trump has promised. He said as soon as before he even takes office, that he would force peace upon Russia-Ukraine or Ukraine war. So I assume that's what's going to happen. I think this is a great day for India. India is being respected. I think the long-standing territorial war between China and India need to be settled. That would be good for our security as well. But again, I wouldn't trust China with all my heart, and I wouldn't trust Russia with China as well. So it's best that we are in the group as opposed to outside.
But I think our policy right now is trust nobody from an Indian perspective, but be ready to work with all. Be ready to be reasonable with all. And viewers, just remember, it's not easy to do this. All of this is happening at a time. Sergey, I want to come to you next. How do you view it in Russia? I saw Russia today, non-stop coverage of this. A lot of focus on Prime Minister Modi, while there being a great focus on BRICS. So obviously your state machinery looks upon today's event and tomorrow's event as an end of American attempts to isolate Russia. How important a role does India play in this?
Thank you so much, dear and honorable Arnab Goswamiji, for invitation. I want to tell that most significance that right now it's the first time that new format of BRICS. Before it was only 5 countries. Right now, 5 new members joined to BRICS, and 4 of these new members belong to the Muslim world. That's why our national leader, Vladimir Putin, specially chose Kazan like a capital of Tatarstan, most biggest Muslim republic in our country, to be a capital of BRICS conversation. And the most important, of course, is agenda, and agenda related to the coexistence and interdependence, like a main principle of BRICS Intergovernmental Alliance. Because we are not living in an independent world where it depends from Mother Earth, from nature, from God, from each other. And we should bring some spiritual principles for our discussion. Criterion of progress, it's not only economical level and some economical level of the society, but also spiritual progress. We can tell how educated people, how they're soft heart. That should be also, we should bring to agenda. And I want just remind that the last day of BRICS will be birthday of United Nations. 79 years back, we installed United Nations without basic word in our document of United Nations, without word God and God will. That's why right now Russia is not any more atheistic country. We are believers like India. India believes to Sanatana Dharma, we also believe to Jesus Christ, and we have with us Muslim population. That's why spiritual mission is dialogue of civilization. That's why BRICS is a future, because of this main principle, means interdependence. What we want to discuss, that is most important.
I think what you're basically saying that, this is very significant, because BRICS is today a much larger body. There are 32 nations who are going to be represented at this BRICS summit. is a direct counter to the Americans, Abhijit. The Americans must be hating it. And on top of it, their hands are tied because you have a lame duck president. You don't know whether it's going to be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, and there's a fair amount of political uncertainty. But the deep state in America will take this very personally. They will look at this as clearly, whatever they say, the end of Russian isolation. And presumably they'll be angry with India, because India has gone and played a major role in putting this grouping together and has worked out, at least partially, but a significant amount of its issues with China. What are we signaling back? And how do you think this will play out? I mean, how will the Americans respond beyond trying to put pressure using proxies like, Justin Trudeau?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Yes,
good evening.
good
Arnab, you are absolutely right. The Americans will be very displeased with India. If India had gone ahead with what the Americans said, then Russia would be way more isolated. So this is an extremely important BRICS summit that we are witnessing. And I had tweeted this on August 13, that the Americans are going to achieve the unthinkable. They're going to drive India and China into the same camp. And that's exactly what's happened. And now India has options of various kinds, especially in light of the India-China border breakthrough, of which we're talking about very early days. We have to always be very wary of China. It's a very complex relationship, many challenges, but with the right approach with China, relations can change for the better. So this BRICS summit for us, it shows that Russia is far from isolated. It shows that India has lots of options, especially at a time when relations with the West are declining. Like I said last time over here, the US is playing good cop, bad cop with India. It's positioning itself as the good cop with Canada as the current bad cop. And the UK, Australia, etc. are also taking the side of Canada. Germany recently put out a truncated map of India. So all these US vassal states are all engaging in the bad cop behavior with India. So the Kazan summit is an opportunity for India to further bolster the robustness of India-Russia ties, to resume cordial relations with China, and to engage multilaterally with the global South. And all of this is going to send a message to the US and the West. The biggest message is that RIC may be in the works, Russia, India, China. And that is the greatest fear of the West. If Russia, China, and India can find a way to come together, it's going to be a huge challenge for the West. India, Russia, we have no problems. It's the one country with which India has excellent relations, and they don't do anything that hurts our national interests. The real challenge is China, and if we can overcome that, working together, then it's a whole new world order that we may be witnessing. So this is the message that is going to go out to the West. It's going to upset the West, but the entire onus of the bad relationship is entirely with the US and the West. We haven't done this, they have done this. All these false allegations, all these baseless allegations, they have created the bad relationship, and now they're going to deal with it. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, surely, without doubt, they are responsible. But I think another thing is, Sarangji, is that I think, Sarang, the Americans underestimated Narendra Modi. They felt that with a slightly lesser verdict in the last general elections, despite coming in with a very strong coalition government, they thought he was politically weaker. They overestimated the opposition. And now with, the huge successes that the BJP has had in the last state elections, and with the way Narendra Modi has played out the first 4 or 5 months of his third term, he's looking as strong as he was, a year back. So did they sort of underestimate Narendra Modi's, one, his political clout, which continues to grow in India? Secondly, his ability to work with different world leaders and countries depending on what India's, interest lies, where India's interest lies.
Yeah, it may be so, Arnab. I felt even when after the election result that the Indian foreign policy will not change fundamentally because the tradition of Indian foreign policy is the Prime Minister and of course his able Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar are both running the show, and their strategy for taking India forward in this very complicated environment continues. So I'm not particularly surprised that India is playing it the way it is. From the US perspective, I do think that they do think that India can align more with the United States on US terms. And that's not going to happen because India has a big enough power to figure out its own destiny, and it has the levers to play. I mean, look at the way the Indo-Russian relationship has continued. in energy trade actually deepened, despite all the pressure that came from Washington and from European capitals. And that was a sign of strategic autonomy. And I expect that autonomous instinct in Indian foreign policy to actually very much continue, if not only deepen, as we go forward. And BRICS, again, provides a very important platform for global South middle powers to play all sides. They want to have good relations with the US, but they also want to hedge and continue their conversations and their exchanges and interactions with other major powers, because the world is not just the United States. There are other major powers and middle powers that are increasingly important. So I think that's what we are seeing here.
I think as we say there on the headline, this is the multipolar pivot. Americans are not ready for it yet, Joseph. I don't think they are ready for it. Certainly not their deep state. They're just not ready for it.
I agree 100% because I don't think the West can live without Russia, India, China. Again, they might not be able to, live without Russia, but without China, all the products, I would say 90% of the products we buy on Amazon are all made in China. Most of the human resources potentially in the future will be coming from India. So without these two countries, the West, especially USA, will be paralyzed. Russia, India, China alliance is the biggest threat, maybe a biggest threat to NATO as opposed to just USA. And all the boogeyman deal Canada is trying to do is just it's nothing. So I would highly suspect that a new presidency, a new leadership in the US would learn to handle it versus the current leadership, which is ill-equipped. The deep state is deeply worried because of the sagging poll numbers of Kamala Harris. So I am very hopeful that we will have a long-lasting peace and an equal footing as opposed to they're treating us down.
My last question goes to both Sergey and to Abhijit. Sergey, to you, and then Abhijit, you can take that. Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. Very powerful combination to put together. But can the three really work together on all significant issues? Or is it a matter of time before differences creep up? Sergey.
First of all, differences, culture diversity, that is the richness of our intergovernmental alliance BRICS. I already mentioned dialogue of civilization. And I want to again repeat, BRICS is not anti-West, it's just non-West. We have only one enemy, which is ignorance. During all our history, our nation, Russia, we always deliver our blood to support small nations like Armenia, Georgia. You can look to all history of Russian people. Even now we support Palestine. Why? Because Palestine, they are suffering. If Israel will be in troubles, we will support Israel. Because we always support justice. And on the basic of dharma, it can be three leaders if they will be its ethics, basic principles, interdependence. They're so clever, so smart, they're real spiritual leader, not only political leader right now. Xi Jinping, Narendra Modi and Putin. That's why they want to create a new model of the global policy. It's not about economy, actually. It's about ideology. Yeah. It's about human value, human traditions, about a vision of civilization.
No, I think it's a very formidable combination. And I'll maybe get a comment from Abhijit on this. If you look at the three leaders together, all of them, Abhijit, have more than 20 years heading more than 10 years at least heading their respective countries, right? And more than 20 years in very significant positions. Lot of experience, lot of maturity, lot of strategy, lot of tact, right? And on the other side, you don't know who's there. I mean, it could be Trump, it could well be Kamala Harris, who Elon Musk calls a puppet wherever he goes. So, I think the Americans and the West will also have to bring together a mature leadership to be able to engage with what Sergey calls the non-West countries, which they don't seem to have to me right now, as a collective face. Can you unmute?
Yes, indeed. So it's going to be a challenge for the US to put forth the right leader. I think it's very evident that Kamala Harris is not the right person to be the leader of the US. If things go well for the US, probably Donald Trump will come to power. But when it comes to the RIC combination of nations, the only challenge for these nations to come together lies within China. Look, India and Russia have no issues whatsoever. We have no divergence of interest. Don't have any bad history together.
Yeah.
It's going to be, the onus is going to be on President Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party to resolve their differences with India, because we haven't created the differences. Whatever wars have happened, whatever tensions have happened, have been created by China. So they'll have to work together with us, and maybe Russia can also get involved. And if that can happen over the next few years, then the world can change significantly. If RIC comes together, it'll be a better. We'll
see some very interesting photo ops. I'm not sure there'll be India-China bilateral at this level just yet, but it'll be great to see if the three leaders we mentioned come together on any photo op and what the body language there is. This is being watched very, very closely in Washington, very, very closely in London, all across the West. I think one thing Putin has achieved, the end of Russian isolation in a dramatic way. So he's played that game well. We're debating that at 10 o'clock. Thank you, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure to have you with us. Now back to news. Back to